We've got to talk about the Bruins blowing it against the Senators on Saturday, and we'll be joined by friend of the show, Katie Bogen.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Monday, January 20th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And before we get started, breaking down the loss to the Senators on Saturday, as well as discussing some other black and gold notes with Katie Bogen. Quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. I'm not on TikTok, but for those of you who survived the very brief departure of that beloved app, I pray that it was not too difficult of a situation to manage as you slept on Saturday night. All right, so today we are indeed going to be discussing the Bruins blowing a third period lead to the Ottawa Senators with two late goals in the third period and then failing to score in overtime, losing in a shootout. Very disappointing result, to be sure, especially because they are chasing the Senators now in the playoff hunt. Ottawa, in fact, winning on Sunday afternoon against the New Jersey Devils and pulling away a little bit here in the playoff race. The Bruins behind the Montreal Canadiens, even sitting now in 10th place as we record here, heading into Monday's game against the San Jose Sharks. We'll preview that one a little bit perhaps as well. But the Bruins not in the greatest spot at the moment. And as we record, there's still a chance that the Detroit Red Wings could pick up some points here on Sunday. The New York Rangers and the Canadiens are both in action. The Rangers, after their drop in the standings, are slowly moving back up. And it's becoming increasingly apparent that the Bruins may be in need of a retool instead of looking to add at the trade deadline. And we'll get into all this here with Katie. So why don't we just jump to that conversation now? Joined once again here on the podcast by Katie Bogen. All right, so on Saturday or all weekend, my kid had a basketball tournament. I missed the beginning of yesterday's game, or the first two periods, but I saw on my phone I was getting messages from friend of the pod, Katie Bogen, who's fresh off a trip to Paris, and she was saying how great this game was. We needed to talk about it. Unfortunately, didn't end as we would have liked, but Katie, welcome back to Locked On Boston Bruins. Thank you so much for being willing to chat about these sad hockey boys that we just cannot stop watching.
I know.
What a game, right? It was crazy.
It was a crazy game. And I went into, the third period, I was cocky AF. I'm messaging you like, we're up 5-3. Look at them. They're killing it. Sway is a house. Everything is great. And then, of course, like classic period 3 Bruins hockey, everything falls apart. They stop grinding. Giveaways. But, it was such a hot game to watch. Like physical. Everyone was playing hard. What a blast, even if the ending was deeply sad.
Yes. And as someone who, I grew up in Ottawa, so Bruins games in Ottawa used to be like my Bruins home games. And you could probably see it on TV. There's a ton of Bruins fans that come to those games in Ottawa. So you could see that it was pretty loud. Great start for the Bruins. They had a lot of positives in this one.
Yes.
Pavel Zacha scoring, even though I benched him on my fantasy team. Power play goal. Jeremy Swayman has been unbelievable as of late because the Bruins are getting wildly outshot on one hand, but he played fantastic. I know you wanted to kind of bring him up a little bit and talk about how great he's been lately. Show Swayman some deserved love before we perhaps criticize a certain play that he made.
Yeah, I think when Sway gets in his like I'm a lion mode, the sort of beast mode where he's biting the jersey. First of all, I say this with maximum respect. I want to eat that boy. But also he gets cocky in the best way, and he makes these saves that are impossible. Like, did he save over 40 shots last night?
I believe so, yeah.
And third game in a row that he's done that, right? Or that was going to be the record he would meet. Just such incredible play. And I understand what he wanted to do at the end with the empty netter and the lofted goalie goal. That would have been incredible. Yes. And that, I think, is Sway at his ballsiest. And he played so daring. He's like knocking people out of the crease and ready to fight. Like him trying to get into the scrap last night. My God, it's just incredible. And it's him getting his swag back after a really rough start to the season. And that has been so exciting to watch because he had that level of daring goalie swag when he was playing in tandem with Ollie last year. By the way, Allmark's kids bringing the little "Hey Uncle Sway, we miss you" posters broke and healed my heart all at once. So spectacular, so charming. But I know that you think that attempted goalie goal was a mistake.
I mean,
to the mic.
I don't know if I don't know if I go as far as to say it was a mistake. It was ill-advised, I would say. I know we got a goalie goal on Friday in Pittsburgh. Maybe he was just feeling that, wanted to get some extra insurance for the Bruins. But, I mean, you got to be super smart with the puck in that situation. I think they had already given up. It was already 5-4 at that point. They had already given up a goal with the extra man out for Ottawa. Cover the puck or get it to a defender, something. Just be a bit smarter with the puck. He did have 39 saves in this one, 43 of the game before, 40 in the game before that. I think I saw it from Ty Anderson on Twitter X that it was the first time the Bruins have given up 40 shots in 3 games in a row since like 1966 or something like that, which is just, I mean, that's problematic, obviously, for the Bruins to be giving up that many shots. You're not going to win more often than not, but they had won the previous 2 games. He played very well in this one, up to a certain point. But yeah, the goalie goal attempt, maybe not the smartest play when you're desperately holding on to a lead.
Yeah, it was in like the last 3 minutes, right? It was around.
It might have even been in the last minute or so.
Really?
He wasn't. I mean, I tweeted this or whatever, X'd it during the game. It was previous to that. It was Elias Lindholm who didn't get the puck out of the net. And I sometimes forget he's even on the Bruins because he's such a low impact player, which is
it's been quiet.
A real problem when he's making almost $8 million and for like 6 more years after this one. Maybe we'll touch on that later on, retooling, things like that. Coming up as the podcast continues, we're also going to discuss Brad Marchand taking a seat in overtime and in the shootout. Some drama on the bench there. And we'll touch on that here as the podcast continues. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win that first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is so easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. And when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, two things. Katie, are you an NFL fan at all, or you care about football that much?
Really no, which I feel guilty saying because I grew up in New England, so I should. But no, hockey has my heart, and pretty much no other sport has come close to stealing it. Maybe rugby, maybe soccer. Yeah.
Right, okay. And second of all, how did you survive the international nightmare that was the TikTok ban over the weekend?
Fine.
Okay.
I was like, this is going to be a public circus kind of deal. There's no way it's actually going away, particularly given the like PR moves that Trump was making. So I was like, okay, we'll wait it out for one whole day. And it lasted 14 hours.
I think the Lord of the Rings extended versions back to back were longer than the TikTok ban. So that would have been a great way to spend your time.
I've got like 230,000 followers on TikTok, and I would have been very sad to lose them because I have this book coming out. And also, they're my biggest audience for Hockey Talk. So when I live stream during the games, I live stream on TikTok.
Right.
So that would have been a lost Bruins community for me.
The Bruins TikTok account is extremely entertaining. Shout out to Elaine Cavalieri, who runs that. So thankfully, it is back. Who was not back in action on Saturday was Brad Marchand, who we learned after the game. He didn't play in overtime, wasn't in the shootout. There was self-concern that perhaps he was banged up or injured. Interim coach Joe Sacco said after it was a coach's decision, which is pretty brave for an interim coach to bench a captain when there's a game on the line, 2 points on the line. What were your thoughts on that particular decision?
Okay, I have a few thoughts. One being, I'm not sure I fully believe Joe Sacco. I think there was some concern after Marshy had that fall. He got up and he was like kind of limping, played the rest of that period and got off, or that rest of the play and got off pretty quickly.
Right.
And so I wasn't sure if this is like, we don't want to reveal an injury until we know what we know kind of question. So that was question number one. Question two was there had been a ton of chirping with the linesmen earlier in the game, like players from both teams getting pretty disrespectful with the linesmen, which is why they were like giving people a lot of penalty minutes when it could have just been waived calls because both teams were misbehaving. And I wasn't sure if Marshy had been involved in any of the chirping, and Sacco was like, look, bro, you've got to calm down. Like, this is not this is not a thing that you can do. So those were two potential rationales I could think of. The third being there were these, rumors before Monty got fired that there was tension between Monty and Marshy. Perhaps there is some credence to that, and there's tension between our captain and our coaching staff, in which case, yikes, big fear, like that's not ideal. But also my loyalty as a fan will be to Marshy forever. Like, that's our captain, loyal Bruin, has spent his career there, has dedicated his life to this team. Coaching staff be damned, you put him on the ice. I understand.
Keep going.
Well, I understand wanting to roll with the chemistry too. And like right now, Pasta and Zaka have incredible chemistry. So I get wanting to maximize their ice time. But it was alarming not seeing Marshy out there.
Yeah. And now that you say that, like, there could be maybe he was a little banged up and it was a coach's decision not to put a guy out there in overtime if he's not fully up to speed. It doesn't a coach's decision doesn't necessarily mean, oh, he's not playing well, you're benched. And also, if there is tension and they're talking about a potential, like Cam Neely, I don't know if you saw when you were in Paris, lucky, but Cam Neely was like, there's two paths for this team. Either we go for it or we retool. Brad Marchand is a free agent this summer, and if you are serious about a retool,
you
would fetch the most in a trade, which I don't want to see happen. I'm fully against that. But if it becomes maybe there's indications that he doesn't want to re-sign or that he'll even, entertain the open market as a free agent, then that gets a bit murky, especially if you're not that you want to like pander to him and be like, oh, anything goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a bit of a concern. It looked like today he was kind of taking accountability for it and saying all the right things as a captain should, but that is, you don't love to see that. And it's, again, for Sacco to do that as an interim head coach, he doesn't really have any job security. So definitely interesting for sure.
But I think that also could speak to the rapport that he has with the team, like that he feels brave enough to sit the captain.
Yeah.
That says something about the accountability they have between each other.
True.
And I will say too, one of the things that I think people don't forget, but minimize is like who Brad Marchand was before 4 years ago. Like we have watched this maturity blossom as Bergeron left. Also, sorry, my cat feeder is about to go off, so you're going to hear in the background. That's what the little clicky noise is. So we've seen this like accountability. I'm going to give it a second.
Yeah.
Thanks, listeners. Thanks for your patience with me. She's a cat.
Real Back to the Future technology.
All those people who call me a crazy cat lady on the internet are not wrong. So we have this like maturing from him just over the last few years, but Marshy is who he is. Like there's still that sort of adolescent pest in there. And every once in a while, probably his nature comes out, and he has been trying to play the captain, and he's done a great job. But when his nature comes out, he has to be reminded, like, you are the captain of this team. You have to play with this level of maturity and responsibility. And his rapport with Sacco must allow for Sacco to bench him if he's being a little too pesty.
Right. Yeah, his career arc will make a fascinating biography someday for sure.
Oh yeah.
What else did I want to touch on? So yeah, the Bruins losing yesterday, that was a really pivotal game for them because Ottawa is ahead of them now in the standings, well ahead of them because they won again on Sunday. They haven't had Linus Ullmark around. There's a bunch of teams like Montreal's ahead of them in point percentage heading into Sunday's action. The Rangers are catching up.
What the heck?
Are playing well.
The Canadians caught up. Bonkers.
Yeah, I know. Craziness. What do you think would be the wise thing for? We talked last time you were on about calling up Matt Poitras, which they did, thankfully.
Yeah.
He got some play in overtime, which was cool to see. I'd still love to see some other guys come up. Maybe Trent Frederick traded out if he's not going to re-sign. What's your sense with this team? I'm not of the opinion that they should be like loading up for a playoff run because they're not those guys this year. What are your thoughts on that?
I am totally focused on the kiddos, and I've been hearing you say this on the pod too. I mean, Fabian Lysell, 100%. Keep Poitras up. Even like Lettieri, who's new. I mean, on the Bruins at least, he played really well last night. Kastelik has been playing really well. I think just focusing on the newbies. I love that the Bruins organization has some loyalty to their veteran players. That's something I really respect about this organization. Whenever they have had to let go of a player that's been central, it's been like obviously a heartbreak also to the head office. So I don't want to like wag fingers at them, but I think when that happens and you hang on to folks for a really long time, the young potential core can be neglected. And we'll watch potential core be neglected. Like the fact that Fabian Lysell was called up for one game, that makes no sense to me given his level. Like the level he plays at, he should be even like on the second line. So I liked Vinny Lettieri, his play. I don't think he should be like a top 6 guy as he is right now. And they have been loyal to veterans, perhaps to a fault, and also maybe they're being too loyal to Cam Neely and Don Sweeney a bit to a fault, but that's a discussion for later on the season, depending on how the Bruins, if they're able to bounce back. Now, chant bonkers.
Yes, we do want to touch more on the quarter century team. I've kind of said my piece, but I know you have some thoughts about that as well. We're going to discuss that. and a little bit more here as the podcast continues. All right, one more ad read. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, how you succeed at the Olympics. The same goes for life, and having a strategy like life insurance from Select Quote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. Select Quote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. At Select Quote, they shop and you save. All right, so last week, the quarter century team was named by the NHL, and it included Milan Lucic, who I argue from an on-ice and off-ice perspective should not have been included. You could easily argue that Nathan Horton should be on there for his contributions during the 2011 Cup run. A guy like Marc Savard. And that's just for hockey stuff. What are your thoughts on the inclusion of Milan Lucic on that quarter century team?
Oh, I have strong feelings. So I loved Milan Lucic back when. And I remember reading, I think in 2012 or 2013, the first time he got a DV charge in Boston and going, uh-oh, and thinking to myself, well, this is inevitable. You have these players who are trained as enforcers, who are told that not only their livelihood, but their reputations, their masculinity, sort of the way they show up in this sport is grounded in their ability to use physical force and violence to get what they want, right? And then you train these players in this ethos and send them home as if that is not going to have a spillover effect in the home environment. I work in domestic violence research and intimate partner violence research. I'm a trauma therapist. I'm a gender-based violence researcher. Seeing him on this quarter century team roster kind of broke my heart. It's sort of like the Bruins organization forgets, first of all, not only that they have women fans, but that men should also care about the prevention of domestic violence. And do you know how bad a DV situation has to get before a pro athlete is held accountable by his organization? This was not a one-time offense. This was a multi-time offense. He was arrested multiple times. There were charges levied against him multiple times. Even if the charges were dropped, they were dropped by a traumatized partner after an allegation of intimate strangling. Like, this is not sort of low key, they had a fight in the street in Boston stuff, which is sort of what the news break was in like 2012, 2013.
Right. Yep.
It's pretty horrible. And he was removed from the team for at least a year to go to this like essentially batterers prevention and intervention program. That's not small potatoes. And so to me, it is so disrespectful for the Bruins organization to do this in a public facing way, sort of post Me Too and our cultural reckoning with the prevalence of dating and domestic violence. It baffles the mind. I could not wrap my mind around this decision. And as someone, I have a Milan Lucic stuffed bear on my couch right now. It's like the first piece of Bruins merch I ever got was a Luch bear. And you have to understand when like accountability is necessary. So I was disappointed.
Yes.
I was offended, like on behalf of all trauma survivors everywhere, I was offended. Which I'm sure people are going to be like, oh, some chick on the internet was offended, whatever. And to those people, I say, screw you, buddy. Like, I'm a Bruins fan just the way that you are. I support the team as much, if not more than you do. And I was pretty sad to see that. And sad for his partner as well, who in the context of her own experiences of harm has to see people minimizing it, which is like a peripheral degradation.
Yes, very well said. One of the smartest things that's probably ever been said on this podcast. I think, the way the Bruins reacted to that I think this team, I don't know if there was any input from the team. They were announced by the NHL. So even still, like the NHL has this inclusion, diversity policy, like they're trying to be more, but the NHL just consistently drops the ball, doesn't think about these things. And it was just baffling that they would not, someone wouldn't catch that and be like, man, let's maybe go with somebody else, because it's not that big of an honor. It's like a made up thing, but the ramifications of having him included are much bigger, and it's just really disappointing that they didn't just go with somebody else who was more deserving. And I know I've had people in the YouTube comments rightfully saying, they may not have won a cup without his contributions. It's still, that's all secondary to just basic humanity and not including him in there. So thank you for sharing it. Yep.
Are you saying then that no one in the Bruins organization, as far as you know, has confirmation or input into this process via the broader like NHL umbrella?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from what I'm reading, it just says the NHL will honor its best players from the past 25 years in a multi-phased quarter-century team. It doesn't really suggest who. Teams will be selected by a panel of media, retired players, and executives specific to that club. So there you go. That means there was input from the Bruins.
From the Bruins organization and from their veteran players.
Yep.
Yeah.
Retired players.
The fact that like they should be, this is shady. Like this is one of the things that rubs me the wrong way. If you are going to nominate and at least I don't even want to say alleged, because this has been multiple charges at this point, a perpetrator of domestic violence, we should know who nominated them. Like we should know who in the organization made that decision. And the fact that the people who are selecting in the context of this controversy, that is not public, and that they don't have to hear from the public how potentially harmful this choice is. As people say, it rubs me the wrong way.
The charges were dropped or whatever. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. Like if you're that narrow-minded that you can't figure out like how that works, then. But yeah, I thank you for making me look, because I was under the assumption that it was like the NHL that made these decisions. But panel of media, I don't know if that's local, national. Retired players, are those retired players Bruins, or is it just any retired players? But it does specifically say executives specific to each club. So that means there was input from someone within the Bruins organization. So that's
And to me, there's a pretty transparent strategy there of not telling us who those people are, so that they can't be held accountable for poor choices.
It's not like when the NHL awards are announced and they release who voted for who, you can kind of, somebody didn't vote for Patrice Bergeron for the Selke Award, you can rightfully go online and call those people out, but that's not the case here. So that's disappointing for sure.
Lack of transparency. Yikes.
Anyways, thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else Bruins related that you're just dying to share before we?
I mean, the game last night was a shock in that it felt so much like playoff style play from them. And so if people have been sort of sleeping on this season because the Bruins record hasn't been great, just know the boys are starting to scrap, and they're starting to scrap really hard. The last 3-4 games have been incredibly exciting up-tempo games. So it's possible that we miss the playoffs. It is. But if you want to see playoff tempo hockey, watch them from now. They're fighting. They're fighting now. Like, don't sleep on this season.
Yeah. I said that even during the game, like it had the feel of a play-in game. That's something that's been discussed, like maybe having the 8 or 9, 10 teams or 8, 9, whatever, try to fight for the last playoff spot. That's how it felt like, because points very much matter, and that'll be how it is for the foreseeable future, unless they decide to go into sell mode and trade some guys. But they are in action. It must be a holiday. I'm a Canadian, of course. It's a holiday on Monday in America. Yes.
Yeah, it is. It's MLK Day.
Yes, I know this. Oh, MLK Day and the inauguration happening on the same day. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's a twisted, grotesque irony there. She says, revealing her politics.
Indoors, because it's going to be too cold.
Yeah, try to invade Canada.
Yes, exactly. That's hilarious. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed your trip to Paris. Were there any like books or movies you watched on the way or way back that you would recommend?
I rewatched all of Ted Lasso.
Oh, okay.
Which is such a delight. All of it. My sleep schedule did not normalize, so I was up till like 3:00 in the morning, which is how I was still watching Bruins games when I was there. I did not miss a game.
Are you a final season Ted Lasso truther, or are you kind of down on it as I was?
Truther?
I did not love the final season of Ted Lasso.
Oh my gosh, I loved it so. I cried like every episode.
Like I don't know. It just turned into like they like extended the episodes. They were trying to make it into like a dramedy.
I was mushy. I live for that stuff. And I think after rewatching all of Ted Lasso and then seeing the most recent Bruins games and also reading like Check Please and some of this other like queer hockey literature, I want to write a book about gay hockey boys so badly. I want to write a romance between an enforcer and a goalie who are from opposing teams and have like this big rivalry, and then one of them gets traded and they wind up on the same team and they have like a torrid affair. That is one of the next novels on my list. So
there you go.
And I know that genre exists, but I just want to contribute to it. I want to be part of it.
Yeah. Speaking kind of in that line, we recently watched finally, I've been wanting to watch it for a while, that Jesse Eisenberg, Kieran Culkin movie, A Real Pain. A lot of brotherly love in that one. I really enjoyed that movie. It was pretty good.
Nice.
And that's about it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins. Thank you so much, Katie, once again for coming on. And I'm sure we will do this again soon. Please feel free to ping me anytime you have some Bruins thoughts and want to jump on. Let people know again where they can find you still on TikTok and elsewhere.
Yes. So I'm on Instagram at k.w.bogen. Pretty easy to find. And I'm on TikTok at Sexuality Scholar. Oh my gosh, you have a cat.
Bessie.
Wait, what is the cat's name?
That's just Bessie. She jumps.
Boo-boo.
This is the resident Locked On Boston Bruins
girly.
cat. Her name is Bessie. She's been on here quite a bit. Ow, Bess. Come on. She has many Bruins thoughts.
Like, I'm not your show pony.
No. She'll only jump on when she wants.
Oh my gosh, so cute.
Anyways.
So Instagram, k.w.bogen, TikTok at Sexuality Scholar. I typically stream the Bruins games during playoffs, not so much during the regular season. So if we make the playoffs, please follow me on TikTok and I'll be there screaming at the TV.
Oh, very nice. Cool.
And it'll be a good time. But until then, follow me for my politics and book stuff and absolutely feral Bruins commentary every time the boys do something hot, which is every game.
Right.
Yep.
And again, please do subscribe to Locked On Boston Bruins on your favorite podcast app, on YouTube. If you have not already, it's a pretty busy week for the Bruins, actually. 4 games on deck between Monday and Saturday. I'll be back tomorrow to recap whatever happens with the San Jose Sharks on Monday afternoon. Bring you all the latest on the black and gold, because that's what we do here on Locked On Boston Bruins. Be sure to check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast next with Steele and Flip. They'll get you all the tips you need to win this week. And it's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.